bit about corporate apps and how is this world going to evolve over the future. So there are 2 points that I want to make here. The first point is really that the cost of development is coming down significantly, right? And what would have taken years to build is now being built much sooner. And this is happening everywhere in the world. Even if you look at some very big applications here in India, one of the big projects that one of the Indian SIs has done is the ESIC project. And they use a rapid application kind of prototyping framework for making that happen. And as a result of it, they were able to build this out much sooner than would have been possible otherwise. I mentioned that only because the development tools that they were using to make that happen were also built out in India. So it's a very interesting example of a Indian startup providing the development tools, and then a very big Indian SI using those tools to build a big government application and deploying all of that much faster than would have been the case. So this is pervasive. This is something you can begin to see in a very big way. We have a very interesting side story around this. This session is tied up to some extent with the NASSCOM product conclave that would take place on the 7th and 8th of November. And, and one of the sessions that we have showcases youngsters, people under 16 who have accomplished something in India. And one of the youngsters that you would see there is a 15-year-old, actually out of Delhi, and who has 11 Android applications in his name, and more than 100,000 downloads, for those applications, has written a 356-page book published by Springer on how to develop augmented reality applications for Android. So here is a situation where now 15-year-olds are writing books and applications in this new world. And why is this possible is simply because the cost of application development is coming down. It's both coming down on the time dimension, it is coming down on the team size dimension. And therefore the costs are going to come down. And this is significant. Why is it significant? Because in the corporate environment, and this is a very important point that I want to make for you, is that in the corporate environment, today there is a huge backlog of applications that are needed. And there is, as in any other part of the world, there is elasticity, there's price elasticity. So if the applications, corporate applications could be developed cheaper, then there will be more consumption of those applications. People will consume them in a much bigger way than has been the case in the past. And so therefore when you put both of these things together, what you get is an environment that we can predict in the future that there will be corporate applications, many more of these applications, smaller footprint applications around, everywhere in the world, in Western companies and of course in Indian companies as well. Now, some people argue that this would only happen for supporting applications or for situational applications, and this would not happen for core applications. Traditionally the core applications have been things like ERP, and my own personal belief is that is not true at all. I gave you an example of ESIC, which was anything but a supporting or a situational application. It was a core application, and yet it benefited, dramatically benefited, I would say, from being able to be done quicker, faster, and cheaper. So this tsunami of lower cost corporate applications is going to touch every type of application that exists in the corporate environment. And some of the existing corporate applications, they will become much more platformized, and so you'll be able to build on top of those as well. And why is that important? And that is important largely because there is a new paradigm that is emerging. And in this new paradigm, what is happening is that you are seeing modularization of an application happen because of everything being anchored to a common data model. And so let me give you an example of that. If you went back in time and wanted to build a quote-to-cash application for the enterprise, that would have taken you a year or more. It would have been an ERP-like kind of an implementation. It would have been called at that time an umbrella application because, it would have been a big application, hundreds of people involved, spending a lot of time building it out. Today, you would accomplish the same thing by actually having lots of modular applications, and each of those standalone applications, something to do with quotation, something to do with CRM, something to do with accounts receivable, collections, and so on and so forth. And all of them, however, making sense, weaving a common story from quote to cash. Why? Because they would all be interacting with a data model that is consistent across all of those applications. So this is a reason why you are beginning to see a whole revolution that is taking place in this world of applications. And there is a flat world, I like to call it, that is emerging. And in this flat world, just the way you have an iPhone store where you can buy your consumer applications, you are gradually going to move to a paradigm where even corporate applications will be bought from these aggregated entities, where aggregation points where many of these applications would live. Now, it might sound to you that this idea that I'm talking about is somewhat outlandish. It is something that does not exist today and is not likely to exist in the near future. This may sound to some of you as something which is too far in the future, and that is anything but true. And and why I say that is because we have a number of companies already in India who have embraced this kind of a world in a big way. And some of these companies are well known, and I'm going to talk about them later in the presentation as well. But take Fusion Charts as an example, right? And that's a classic example of a company that is very, very niche focused and sells mostly to corporates, right? Most of their paying customers are corporates, and they have a very large presence, very large customer base in the Western markets, right? And guess, where did they build the company? They built it in Kolkata. So the point that I'm making is that it is truly a flat world. In this flat world, it doesn't matter where your application comes from. It could come from Kolkata, it could come from Bangalore, it could come from California. It doesn't really matter, because in this world, what really matters is, do you have a great application or not? And if you do, then you have the power to be able to take your application and get it in the hands of corporate users worldwide. So this is the change. This is the opportunity that is there in front of us. Now, I must caution and say, look, what am I talking about? I'm by and large talking about SaaS type of applications. I'm talking about applications that are hosted somewhere, so you don't have a big deployment infrastructure that you have to worry about inside the corporate environment. They could be deployed in some cases inside a private cloud within the corporate environment, but either way, they're cloud-based applications. They are quickly deployed. The payment models for this